and it speaks to one of the hidden dangers inherent in any social model. My day, presumably your day, is not micromanaged by anyone. I change my mind a lot and change my plans a lot. I think we would all instinctively repudiate any assertion of power that effectively canalizes our daily existence. Now, legalism is all about control. These controls attach themselves to the many arms of the state, but they also attach themselves to other entities like service providers when invested with state authority to achieve certain ends. Nothing bad here, you might say. Power needs a corrective. But in the context of expanding something as fragile as personhood, legalism, even well-intentioned legalism, has its costs. Legalism is good at protecting people against certain things, but persons with intellectual what they need most is to re-engineer services to augment capacity. Legalism likes to mitigate risk, but more space for risk seems needed if capacities are to be augmented. Legalism can contaminate the philosophy of an organization, lead it into losing sight of the underlying goal, which is respecting dignity and expanding autonomy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of protection, and of course as a lawyer I'm in favor of legalism, but somehow or other the convention calls into question the existing balance between protection and expanding autonomy. I don't know how the balance is to be restruck, but I do know that excessive legalism can be the kiss of death for the kinds of innovation called for in the convention. So it seems to me, if we take personhood seriously, law is being asked to play three connected sets of roles. First of all, even at a symbolic level, the law must be reorientated toward a model of supported decision-making. I suppose a comprehensive strategy would be one that does not just focus on Article 12, but also builds in tangible movement toward independent living and active participation, connecting people to the social capital that envelops all of our lives. Secondly, some of the tensions within supported decision-making will have to be explicitly dealt with. How do we know when the supports are not actually interposing their own preferences and undermining the person? Can we draw any bright line in law as a safeguard against this and other abuses? Me, I'm not sure any such bright line exists. I suppose my general point is this is something that actually afflicts everybody. Thirdly, a way will have to be found to ensure that the voice of the person that emerges, whether directly or as mediated through, for example, representation agreements, is actually respected. Now, most of us live most of our lives in a web of private-based market transactions like rental agreements, banking transactions, and the like. What of the contracts entered into by, for example, representation agreements? Are they somehow worth less? I must say, as someone interested in legal history, this really intrigues me because, as Michael will know full well, the pure will theory of contract depicts the contractual relationship as a function of the meeting of minds. The reality, as pointed out decades ago, is that courts impose contractual obligations regardless of the will of the parties if social purposes point in that direction. So the real hesitation here is an objection to a mechanism that advances the social interests of persons with disabilities, hardly a viable objection. And what of the legal implications of mistakes? And there will be plenty, and be many big ones, and there will be mistakes with lasting consequences. Who picks up the pieces? Who is liable? And who bears the costs? These are questions all lawyers ask instinctively. Well, it's back to legalism again. Clearly, I think a new social contract with consequential legal changes is needed to create the breathing space for the new paradigm. Karl Auerbach once wrote a stunning book on justice without law, on how to achieve just results in a community setting without exclusive reliance on the rule of law as we know it. It's a bit utopian, and we all do need law to protect us, but we still need this rebalancing to take place. Otherwise, we will end up with very restrictive practices that will stifle the growth of supported decision-making regimes. All life for all of us is generally a balance between nurture and exposure. a graduated process resting on the hope that capacities will mature and responsibility emerge. When it comes down to it, there is a balance of risks at play here. The risk that overprotection will somehow smother whatever chance there is that the will and preference can express itself, and the risk that underprotection will lead to bad consequences which no one will take responsibility for. Now, this is easy to say, but as a parent you will naturally have your doubts. You wouldn't be human if you didn't. Tangible steps will be needed to remove egregious, overly protective laws. For example, we have a law in Ireland that makes sexual relations with a person with intellectual disabilities a crime of strict liability. That means that out of abundant caution of the law, service providers do not, and this is no exaggeration, create any space whatsoever for relationships to emerge. We can make a good start in rebalancing by repealing all such laws outright. Through time, with the emergence of a new kind of service provision model that proves that capacities do exist and can be augmented, resistance to these kinds of laws will fade. This rebalancing is not going to be easy, but it has to happen. I'm very glad to hear I'm going to rush to my hideous crescendo, my conclusions. What are my conclusions? It should be obvious by now that I believe the relative inability of the paradigm shift to shift has explanations that lie far beyond or beneath law or disability. We have a myth system that places a premium value on a premise of personhood, but doesn't really commit to it or to underpin its main ingredients. By the way, it's questionable whether all of us, all of the time, aspire to be masterless men. Or at the very least, we all vacillate between our need for separateness and control to our equal need for connectedness and support. We have an operation system that all of us experience and benefit from, which generally speaking is no problem at all with irrationality, except when it comes to persons with disabilities. And in truth, we are all vulnerable. We all count on innumerable supports just as we brush them off in favour of our own liberty. It's not just that society has a problem acknowledging this for persons with disabilities, it's that society has a problem acknowledging this, period. It is in this sense that the struggle of others, like the elderly, are our struggles too. So in a sense, Article 12 provides an occasion to reveal and expose the partiality of our collective commitment to personhood. Good on personhood, but not good on the causes of personhood. So I see the debate as a subset of a larger debate about citizenship, about mutual support, about connectedness to social capital, about independent living, and about participation. And I think the debate needs to be repositioned there. If it continues to be a disability-specific debate, it will be dragged down by decades, if not centuries, of baggage. Let me end with one of my favourite quotes. Sure some of you are sick and tired of me saying this. We can perhaps remember, if only for a time, that those who live with us are our brothers and sisters, that they share with us the same short moment of life, that they seek, as we do, nothing but the chance to live out their lives in purpose and happiness, winning what satisfaction and fulfillment they can. It's a quote from Robert Kennedy, and now it's up to us to make it so. Thank you very much.